In the year 2027, the American Congress passes a poorly worded bill that inadvertently renders all video games illegal. Within 3 days, the entirety of the United States of America collapses into a post-apocalyptic hellscape. But for those of you lucky enough to live in the past, there's
still time to donate to the Hardcore Gaming 101 Patreon. So give now, and ensure that the only thing keeping you awake late at night
is the ever-present threat of Mecha Hitler's cybernetic human extermination squads.
It's nice to have peace of mind.
All right, the next game we're talking about is Dynamite Cop, which was nominated by @Showdown 2020 on iTunes.
Which is great, because that means we still have 3 more years before the robots take over the world.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I for one welcome robot.
Good reference, gamer guy. Developed by Sega AM1 and published by Sega for the arcade, among other things, I guess.
Dreamcast was the other one.
Yeah. And earliest release date and territory is 1998 worldwide. So it came out exactly on January 1st, 1998, all over the world.
It just suddenly existed, and you were like, whoa, yeah, that's there.
Check out this crappy game.
Dynamite Cop is awesome. What the hell?
No.
Kurt,
Check out this awesome game, world.
Thank you.
You guys talk Dynamite Cop.
So Dynamite Cop is the sequel to a game that was known in Japan as Dynamite Deca. Released in the US as Die Hard Arcade because one of the characters sort of looks like Bruce Willis, and that was good enough for Sega.
Yeah, but the villain doesn't look anything like Alan Rickman. He just looks like an old kung fu master dude. So
I mean, the original Dynamite Deca, it's pretty obvious they were going for Die Hard. Like, not completely, but it's pretty clear they were like, we like Die Hard, let's make a beat 'em up that's kind of like Die Hard. So they did the logical thing, called it Die Hard Arcade when they released it. Kind of popular, but not overly. Dynamite Cop, the sequel, which is obviously Dynamite Deca 2 in Japan, way more popular. This game, it was in like all the arcades. It was a mainstay for just years. I think I was seeing this machine, in 2003, 2004. I was still seeing this machine, so it would kind of gravitate towards the back of the arcade, but it was still there, and people were still standing there and playing it.
Strange you say that. I've seen a lot of Die Hard arcade machines where I'm at, but never a single Dynamite Cop machine live.
Yeah, this must be different in America, because I've seen exactly one Dynamite Cop, which was on a road trip up to Canada at a rest stop in New York.
That's interesting, because every...
was Speed 2 really popular in Australia? Just asking.
Why would Speed 2 be popular anywhere?
Well, I only link that because the thing about Dynamite Cop is that, it's Die Hard on a boat, or Die Hard Arcade on a boat, or Speed 2 was Speed on a boat, which is Die Hard on a bus, or...
This could have been Under Siege, the video game, and yet they missed it.
The thing is,
go ahead.
The vibe I get from Dynamite Cop is less American action movie, more like weird Chinese martial arts movie.
Yeah, I can totally see that. I mean, you have this one, half-naked guy with a turtle shell, and this is definitely not something I don't think even Die Hard Arcade went as nuts for. And
are you telling me that this is more like City Hunter? Because I hope you're telling me it's like City Hunter.
Wow, I never thought to make that connection, but that makes a lot of sense.
Oh, the vibe of this game is like Die Hard Arcade was like an 80s action movie, but like slightly over the top. Like every once in a while, you got a missile launcher. And then this game just goes completely, it seems at first like it's a lot like the first game, and it's just really goofy as hell. Like the first guys you fight are like an actual dude in a pirate suit and
some pirates,
fat woman in a bikini. Yeah, like the only thing I remember about this game in the arcade was that in the intro, what do you call it thing? Just the role that it plays when nobody has to put any money in it. Attract mode, yeah, precisely. Or it's just like some modern day pirates. I'm like, you don't have to say modern day. Pirates are still pirates. Like,
they have to make it clear because they're actually pirates from the 1700s.
Don't forget, they're Long John Silver on steroids.
It strikes me that it's just a very uniquely Japanese sense of humor, because you think of the parody movies that we saw from the 80s and 90s were things like Hot Shots Part 2, and they were just very over-top, goofy, cartoonish. And this is too, but it's just it seems to kind of be playing it straight until you see how ridiculous it is.
Yeah, I
Well,
mean,
because your
not-
characters are essentially really played it straight. You know, Bruno, Jean, and Eddie, they're just people. You know, it's like, I am white face puncher. I am the girl face puncher. I am the black guy face puncher. That's it. Those are the three characters. There's nothing goofy about them at all, and yet they're surrounded by these absurd situation where you beat up pirates in a hairdresser with like the hairdresser hair drying I don't know, like hair blower, hair dryer things. You know, you're like beating pirates up with one of those, and then you fight a chef who's rolling around the floor, and you're hitting him with tuna and stuff, and that's
Also, you throw
right. That's what's happening.
that
Wait, what,
cake at
Bob?
people. Don't forget that.
Right.
Yes, you throw cake. You can eat the cake too. You've got two options. You can eat the cake, or you can throw the cake. And it's a tough one because you
Yeah,
can't throw the cake and eat it.
I also remember you could get like a fully working laser gun early on, and an anti-ship missile, which is a literal nuke that blows up your opponents, but it doesn't sink the ship at all.
It just blows them like 50 feet
Yeah, the
up into
camera
the
pans
sky.
up.
Exactly.
And
But like,
it actually kills the enemies in one hit. I've seen them survive it, so that's pretty great.
No, it doesn't kill the bosses in one hit.
Well, that's
like
because
the
like, in
characters
this
you have
game,
to fight.
you get like guns and you just load like 50 rounds into a guy, and then it takes that much for them to die. And that was the same thing in Die Hard Arcade too. It was just like taking that natural like video gaminess to its next step of absurdity.
Right, because the
But,
game,
I mean, that's
it is a beat 'em up. That's what
Yeah,
it
it's
is.
a lot of beat 'em ups, right?
But it's also like what separates it apart from like the classic ones beyond like the 3D graphics and all the cutscenes and stuff is that there's a lot of weapons and items that you use to like shoot enemies or just throw things at them. Like every single room has something you can do something weird and wacky with.
Yeah, there's
Yeah,
some cool
I mean-
stuff, like you can climb up on tables, you can, like, there's some elevation in this game, you know, that's not very standard. In even 3D beat-em-ups, they still kind of sit on a single plane a lot of the time. This game has, like, ups and downs in places, it's got ramps, it's got things in the level that move through it.
I mean, if you want to call this game akin to City Hunter, like, the level of action is almost Jackie Chan-like with all the various crap that you get to hit
I
enemies
love how action this game is. There is no downtime, because it also it throws in cutscenes occasionally, which I love it, because it's forever burned in my mind when the villain, whose name is Wolf White Fang Hongo, he always has this one line, no matter which of the game's three paths you choose. He just says, "Get the bomb, and where is that girl?" You know, and it's just like you're constantly being pushed through the levels, and even the transition between the individual fight zones are quick time events. It's one of the
quick time
first.
events. Like, if you like do one right, you kick a guy and then it replays you kicking that same guy like 4 times, different camera angles.
Which is exactly like a Jackie Chan thing, like the whole like repeat the super kick kind of thing. I think Bruce Lee did that in several movies as well. You know, so
And
yeah.
it's,
But if you screw up, you do this like goofy, like you fall over or you just trip into the enemy, and then you have to do an extra little area.
I love the way that they're masked, because one of the big problems with the Saturn version of Die Hard Arcade is that it was constantly stopping to load. Because even though it ran on the same, it was an STV game, I'm pretty sure, in the arcade, so like in most ways it was identical, but with the constant load times and having to restart the music because it was CD audio, it really made it super disjointed. But the way, at least the Dreamcast Dynamite Cop is like, they're still loading, but it's masked in a way that seems like it's smooth. So you
Yeah,
kill
'cause you
all the
can hear
enemies.
that.
Yeah, you can hear it whirring. You kill all the enemies, and like nothing happens, but you can still kind of walk around, and then it immediately transitions into the cutscene that takes you to the next area. So it definitely seems less, smoother, like you said.
Yeah, you actually can hear, if you got the Dreamcast one, you can hear the disc start spinning as it's loading the action scene, and then it makes you input your direction and stuff, and it's really cool. Just the whole thing feels like one of the, I don't know if this is the best like classic 3D beat 'em up. You know, this isn't Devil May Cry or anything. You know, it's not that sort of like really different Dynasty Warrior style, like
It's probably one of the best.
massive over the top
it
game.
still has its roots in like arcade beat
It's
'em
honestly
ups.
probably one of the best
Yeah.
3D beat 'em ups because a lot of those generally don't work out too well. This is genuinely really
An
good.
interesting thing is the way that the combo system in this game works, which is very loose but feels very impactful. Like you've got punch, kick, and jump, and you just kind of like mix those like buttons together, mostly punch and kick, and your characters will just pull off like a bunch of different moves depending on what order you're sort of smashing those buttons together. And if you get the power-up charge mode that you can sometimes get by picking up, like, the letter P or whatever, I can't remember what the letter is, you do even more powerful chain hits and stuff. And it's very, it feels good to punch people in this game is what I'm saying. And that's very important for a beat-em-up. And this game does that very well.
Yeah. I mean, beat-em-ups in general were really on their way out in this time. I almost want to say that Dynamite Cop was sort of a last hurrah for the genre in question, because I can't remember anyone after this by Sega or whoever else that was quite as bonkers.
Yeah, the bouncer was no good.
No!
He said hurrah, not like the hangover in the morning.
Well, I do rather like Urban Reign. That's kind of a different flavor. It's more like a versus arena than a full-fledged beat-em-up in a way.
Yeah, but one of
that's
the things about Dynamite Cop is I guess it feels like they poured a full-budget game, like all the money that you would produce like a normal game with at the time, into this basically less than an hour-long game, because there's only 3 paths. I don't think it'll take you more than 20-25 minutes a path once you have a reasonable idea of what you're doing.
Good luck getting past the Kraken, though. You find a giant octopus.
Yeah, this game is paced very well. It only takes like half an hour to finish, and compared to a lot of beat 'em ups where it can take like probably around an hour, that feels really nice. It really does not make you hang around and wait for it to finish itself.
Yeah, the problem with a lot of beat-em-ups is that, like, in the last 2 or 3 levels, you're just basically facing the same enemies that you already have, and it takes a while before you get to the final boss, who will invariably drain, like, 5 credits from you. This one is short, succinct, and precise.
But does have a final boss that drains your credits, because...
Yeah, Wolf is a bastard, but then again, he's like a cybernetic Master Roshi or whatever.
Yeah, it turns out he can shoot lasers from his eye.
I didn't really have that much problem, because for whatever reason, this game gives you unlimited credits, so... It's not really that hard of a game to finish.
Does it? I was playing it earlier before, and it only gave, like, 4 or 5. But I had just, like, started a fresh save game, so...
Yeah, so I think you could unlock unlimited credits in the Dreamcast version, I believe was an option. Obviously, if you played the arcade version, it did not give you free unlimited money, unsurprisingly.
The Saturn version of Die Hard Arcade had Deep Scan, which is a really old, like, late 70s, early 80s Sega game where you could play it and get credits for the real game. And Dynamite Cop has another old game, but it didn't work the same way. It has a port of Tranquilizer Gun. But unfortunately, you need to unlock that first by beating a bunch of stuff in the main game.
And it just gives you the Tranquilizer Gun for the main game, which is a new weapon exclusively for the Dreamcast version. Which the Dreamcast version does add a couple of things. You get... I think you get like a couple of extra game modes. One, I think you get like an unlimited pistol mode, because this game has this is probably one of the more unique additions to Dynamite Cop as opposed to other beat 'em up and that sort of game. You have a gun that kind of sits as a permanent item of yours. If you are carrying it, you basically carry this gun, and you can still kick because the game has kick and punch. But if you press shoot, you shoot your gun. However, if you run up to an enemy and you grapple them, and I think you have to grapple them from the back with the gun, you'll actually put them under arrest. So you just say, like, you're under arrest, and then they get handcuffed, and that's it. You've just defeated the standard enemy, which is a really odd touch. And you can't do that unless you have a gun, and you can actually pick up ammunition drops, like, magazines for the gun, and you can only collect those I think you can collect them even if you don't have the gun, but you need the gun to activate them. So there's this, like, odd little system with a sidearm, which is very not normal for a beat 'em up. And I think Sega went, all right, well, let's improve or change that when they did a Zombie Revenge later on, which just had you have a gun the whole time. So it's
not that game, though.
I like Zombie Revenge a lot. It's very underrated.
I was looking through my Dreamcast games, and I forgot that I had it. I remember playing it in arcade once, and I was not very impressed with it.
Oh, really? Well,
yeah, I mean, I couldn't. It's been like 15 years, so I couldn't tell you why. But
Dynamite Cop is
a strange game.
Dynamite Cop is super approachable. I would challenge someone to not enjoy this game if you just go play this game. It's like, all right, yeah, this is fun. Like, it's hard not to enjoy it because it's quite infectious. It's absurd. It's relatively easy to play. It's got all this stuff going on. Zombie Revenge is a very, like, it is esoteric, and you have to really learn what it's trying to get you to do. And Dynamite Cop is probably better, but it's still, Zombie Revenge is a good game. All else I have to say about Dynamite Cop is the composer for the game is Howard Drossen, and he did a bunch of Sega
I love his stuff. This is more of a cinematic
really great
style than his usual, like, butt rock he does, for lack of a better word, but I still like it.
Well, this
Nah,
one
the
definitely
soundtrack for,
captures that action.
Comic Zone, which is a damn good soundtrack.
That's the one. And
He knows how to make music, Mr. Jordan does.
Okay, he did Sonic Spinball, but besides the infamous option music, I like the rest of it.
I like the option music.
That's
Like the
awesome.
option music.
It's grown on me for as weird as it is.
I
But
think
that's-
you got to remember. I'm pretty sure when he was composing that song, it wasn't supposed to come off as metallic. I'm sure.
No, that's just a hardware and emulation error for.
But yeah, I think that Dynamite Cop is a great package of a game. It is too short, and when Sega sold it on the Dreamcast, this is a great game if you're in an arcade and you put a couple of dollars into the machine, and maybe if you play with a friend especially, it's like, yeah, this is great
kind
fun.
of
And then
pretty much like 90% of the Dreamcast library was like a great arcade port, but really not maybe a whole lot beyond that.
Yeah. Well,
That was a case of a lot of like, for some reason, Capcom just had a resurgence of doing that type of game. So they were just putting out all sorts of shoot 'em ups, like everything by Takumi and Pro Gear by Cave and all sorts of things. Just
Giga
it felt like something out of time, especially because they actually came out in America, which was fantastic. But it just didn't seem to like the PlayStation really introduced and got more people into longer form games. So when so much of the appeal of the Dreamcast was this is basically the same as the arcade, just on something you could buy for $40. But these games were just not really well adapted for home play, other than like some major like galleries or additional modes or something like that, which is kind of a hard sell when you're putting a $40-50 price tag on it.
Well,
it's really funny because Sega shot themselves in the foot with that in a really serious way, because either you played the arcade game and you spent less than $40 and it was like, yep, that's cool, I don't need to play that at home, or you're like, I don't need to play that arcade game because I can play this at home. And so they actually were competing with themselves for the exact same money, and so their arcade games would like become less popular. Dreamcast would become less popular depending on what choice someone made. So that was this whole period for Sega was kind of like them juggling a great idea, but it didn't pay off because it was like, yeah, if people can play the arcade at home, then they won't go to the arcade and play your games in the arcade. Or if all you're offering is the arcade experience at home, if people have that game in the arcade, they're like, I'm not going to spend $300 getting the machine and all of the bits and everything to play the game that I'm going to spend $10 on and never touch again. So that's...
Well, at the same time, like, I mean, you mentioned you saw Dynamite Cop all the time. In America, like, we had Die Hard Arcade. Like, at the movie theater I worked at, we actually had Die Hard Arcade up until, like, 2000, 2001. And I remember the attract mode for that game very vividly. You know, where are the SWAT team members? I don't care about the SWAT team members. Where's the president's daughter? You know, just that over and over, because you work tickets by there. But like I said, like a lot of the stuff that was on the Dreamcast, I had never seen in the arcades. Like I had never seen Soul Calibur in the arcade till well after the Dreamcast version had come out, and the Dreamcast version was like a much enhanced port of that. So like every once in a while, I would see these games, but like a lot of the stuff in there was kind of like when the arcades were like fading. So if you saw a Power Stone cabinet or Rival Schools cabinet in the wild, that was like a treat for me.
I never have myself.
Actually, the only time I saw a Die Hard arcade cabinet was a cinema, but it was a cinema in country Australia. You know, you had to go pretty deep into the country to find this specific cinema, and I was just like, huh, Die Hard arcade, weird. Like that was I never saw it at any local arcade.
It's really strange how the two games are kind of flip-flopped in Australia as far as availability. But even if I did have to settle for the DC Dreamcast version, Dynamite Cop...
settling. It's like it's good. It's good port.
For what it is.
Better, more or less.
Yeah, I mean, it has everything and Tranquilizer Gun to boot. Don't forget that.
Well, it has an extra couple of modes, too. It's the best version of the game.
Oh, it has the comic, which Bobinator brought out, and I had completely missed because I just never went into that menu. I guess there's a comic that was drawn for probably the Japanese website.
And it's pretty much like the dumbest thing you've ever read, but it's goofy, incredibly goofy and fun to read.
Yeah, and it's badly. I mean, it's translated by somebody who like knew English and was having a fun time in it, but at the same time was also really sloppy because they did all the text is in Comic Sans. It's full of like mispunctuated text and all sorts of stuff. I bet it's.
It sounds like the Duwang translation of JoJo Part 4. Kinda, if everyone knows what I'm talking about.
But, I mean, it basically tells, like, the plot of the game in comic book form, but, like, they make all this weird backstory where, like, the president is talking to people and they're like, if you save my daughter, you're never going to have to pay taxes again. And Bruno Dillinger has a monkey named Banana who I don't think appears anywhere in the game. But
he does appear. I think he's on his shoulder in the character select, but he doesn't appear in the game.
And that's a real tragedy because they do ridiculous stuff with that monkey. Like, I think the monkey, like, almost like he talks. There's a thought balloon or something on him, and he's like, Bruno says something like, "This is getting that back from the time you peed on me," or something ridiculous. They like put a pirate hat on him and then send him across. I mean, even if you don't have the game, there's a YouTube link that sort of goes through it, and it's just the most ridiculous thing. Just like the game, it is actually more ridiculous than the game, which is already over the top.
We do have to move on. If anyone has any final words,
I do actually. If you want to talk ridiculous, I don't know if we wanted to touch on Asian Dynamite briefly.
Oh, Dynamite Deka EX. There's not much to say about it except that it was Dynamite Cop adapted to the Asian market.
Yeah.
So they basically just took the game and redid the textures and the enemies. They don't think they added a whole lot. They
changed some of the weapons around so that you now can pick up costumes that change your character's fighting style. Very unusual mix. It's like they redid it for Asia for no reason, because I don't think Dynamite Cop had any weirdness that wasn't suitable.
And instead of the giant octopus, you fought a giant Buddhist statue. I don't know if that's better or worse, but it's just a strange overall change. It's also like it was also released like 5 or 6 years after the original Dynamite Cop, so I guess
and
like,
pretty much Asia exclusive. I don't think it was in Japan either. I think it was like in like Hong Kong, Taiwan, maybe China markets. Like I don't think it was.
Yeah.
It's a very strange retreatment. I can't think of many other games that just like have their graphics wholly redone. I guess like Super Mario Brothers 2 in a way, but like...
Well, there are. I just can't think of any that were redone for like the Chinese market like that.
I can only say that like, they changed Mitsurugi to like Arthur or whatever due to some like Japanese-Korean relations that were controversial.
Oh, yeah, they don't... I guess
they
in
don't
Korea,
like
they don't
samurai.
necessarily like certain things. Like Kenseiden, they changed it to a Korean warrior. Instead of going through Japan, you're going through Korea.
Wow, I don't think I knew that. But does the map look like Korea that you go through?
Yeah, they changed all that stuff, and all the levels are locales in some time period of Korea. I know absolutely nothing of the history.
Shoot,
but I mean, like, they just changed like the sprite slightly, and otherwise the game is like exactly the same. Like, it's very obviously patterned after Japanese type characters, but they just did like the bare minimum to make it seem like they weren't buying a Japanese product.
Yeah, that's how Dynamite Deka EX was. I thought it was an interesting little sidebar, but I don't know what else to say about it. So, without further ado, we should probably get to ranking Dynamite.
I'd love to play Asia Dynamite, because I've never seen it for unsurprising reasons.
It's emulated. Like, I wrote about it
now?
for the site. It was emulated a long time ago.
Okay.
Like, I wrote the site article for Dynamite Deka maybe 6-7 years ago, and it was playable on whatever Naomi emulator or like
I remember
Dynamite Cop.
It didn't emulate super well, so I was like, oh, I won't bother then.
It may have had some glitches, but I was able to play it and get screenshots. Like, I can't remember, like, Dynamite Cop, the arcade game, was a Model 2, and then the Dreamcast was, of course, Naomi level, even though they didn't tweak too much about the game. But I can't remember what Dynamite Deka EX was on.
I wouldn't be... if it was different hardware, I'd be completely shocked. So, I'm going to throw this out. I'm thinking somewhere around... I didn't want to put this game... I didn't think of like putting it too high. I keep looking at around Devil's Crush, but I don't know if that's too low for Dynamite Cop.
Let's see, where's Devil's Crush?
Devil Crush is 88.
Okay. All right.
Or is it 86? Sorry, it's 86.
I don't know if it should go that low below Final Fight. I mean, I kind of like this better than Final Fight, but...
I would say, I mean, it's one of those games I can't play for too long, but, just given the opportunity to dig it out, every couple years and stuff and spend like half an hour with it, it's fun in that level of bursts.
So that's really the thing about this game, is you can play it for under an hour, and it's super great. It's like, yeah, I'm like, this is really fun. And then you probably don't want to play it for weeks or months, maybe even years. It's like...
Its brevity is simultaneously its best asset and its biggest weakness, so that's kind of odd how that works out. I'm thinking... let me throw this out. Maybe bump it up a few notches. How about between Bangai-O and Night Warriors?
That's fair. I can work with that.
That sounds like a good spot.
All right. Hey, fair deal. I just threw a dart at the board there.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm happy with that. I can't get over how hard it is to replay this game. If you compare this to I'll just say like Streets of Rage 2, I can literally play Streets of Rage 2. I can finish Streets of Rage 2 and then just start it again. Like I can just keep replaying the game. Like I
just want to point out, like, this is pretty high on the list for Dynamite Cop.
You haven't even played Dynamite Cop.
I have played Dynamite Cop. I just don't want to talk about Dynamite Cop.
You just
I'm happy
Dynamite
to let other
Cop.
people talk about Dynamite Cop.
I'm going to mention that this is below UN Squadron and
Yeah,
Bang
anyway.
IO.
And
That's not
I
not
would
that
use
high.
Squadron is no longer the absolute
No, it's moved up a little bit. We've pushed it. Pushed it up.
True.
Some real turds that have pushed it up.
Well, what I want to say is Dynamite Cop is one of the singular most enjoyable beat 'em ups that I think you can play for about 20 minutes. It's an arcade game. That's what it's designed to do, and in that, following that criteria, it does that perfectly. Its weakness is it trying to play it in a way that it's not really intended, which is over and over again. It doesn't stand up to repeated play sessions over a short duration. Intermittent duration is fine. So I think that it does what it does almost perfectly.
Thing is,
I've pushed it down pretty far as I'm concerned, because I know that it doesn't beat things that are like, longer than 20
one thing real
minutes.
quick, I can't put this anywhere near Streets Rage 2, because Streets Rage 2 is just such a more polished, skillful game, and this is just wacky and crazy. Well, it's fun, it's just kind of fluffier.
It's also kind of exhausting, I think.
Yeah, it doesn't help
It's like
that
so much silly at the same time, where it's like, just the way the pacing in like a classic beat 'em up is just a little bit like different. It's a longer burn.
it doesn't help that Wolf's Hongo Cyclops.
Streets Rage 2 is like a movie, this is like a roller coaster ride.
And it's
What's
also
that
because
full
it's
name
so much of a
again?
parody
Wolf?
that like so much of Streets of Rage 2 and the good ones they have such like cool style behind them, whereas this is just like silliness over the top, craziness.
Wolf White Fang Hongo. That's the guy's full name, right?
That's his
Yes.
full name. That's his.
Dude,
I think
totally
White Fang might be his
break down with Dog Power.
nickname.
Like dogs and Wolf White Fang Hongo.
You could put
Sounds like,
totally
put,
put,
my buddy Wolf White Fang
you
Hongo.
could totally put Dog's Bower in this game, and you would never be able to tell anyone.
He would just be there. He'd be like, "Yeah, let's
a
go
modern
then.
day
Let's
pirate.
fight then."
That's true.
Ugh.
They should have at least had Hassie as a health item. Come on, it lends to itself.
Okay, all right. That alone, okay, that'll justify its position in that.
Yay.
I'll,
All right.
I'll concede.
Sounds
we
good
hit
to
the
me.
dogs button on Xerxes, and thus between Bangayo and Night Warriors it shall be.
I'm hitting that dogs button on my own, man. I'm hitting that button on myself.
You're just
Again,
combing
again.
through every game like, is there dogs? Is there dogs? If dogs is in this, I'm just gonna love it. Where is he?
Wolf White Fang Hongo, a man with 2 nicknames.
Also, I believe that he doesn't wear a shirt the whole game. Like, he's just like, forget that. I don't need no shirt.
This game has battle damage. Like your guys start
that's
off
right,
wearing
yeah.
full thing of clothes, and then as they get like all the guys they ripped up their shirts, or the main girls in her sports bra or whatever.
Yeah, that's right. I like to challenge myself when I played this game to try and keep my health above losing your clothes as long as possible. I can get pretty far, it's a pretty fair game, which is another reason I did push it a little high. It's pretty fair. It doesn't really cheese you out, so I like that about
A
it.
fair beat 'em up is a rare creature indeed. Okay, so that's where it goes. Dynamite Cop. I forget where it goes.
I said Bangayo and Night Warriors.
He did it. We're good. Close it off. Good night,
Okay,
everybody.
above Night Warriors, Darkstalker's Revenge.